Welcome, everyone. We thank you very much for joining us for our convening and coronavirus call with conveners.org. This one is Hop-In Behind the Curtain, certainly. We have Catapult Cloud, where they share what worked and what didn't from using Hop-In for their Catapult Cloud event that happened May 18th. So join us. And we're thrilled to have you all here with us. This is a continuing grand experiment of all of us that we are exploring Hop-In, how the platform works, and hosting this call on that for you all to explore with us. So we appreciate your patience and your ability to just have fun and be curious with us. So I'm going to kick us off and share my screen with you and provide you with a sense. Let's try this and move onward from there. And so you will probably have a sense where you can see me and the screen itself, where we welcome you. And I'm going to turn myself off and start to share screens here. And as we go through this presentation, it will be interesting. We're going to have behind the scenes of Catapult Cloud, but we'll give you behind the scenes information as well. Off we go. Let's get started here. If I can, there we go. Perfect. Again, welcome everyone. We certainly are glad you're joining us. We have had over at least 10 countries represented on this call, so it could be morning for you or afternoon for others. So we appreciate you joining us. And we want to, as if you've been familiar with our convening and coronavirus calls, and at conveners.org, we start our calls out with a grounding moment and really a threshold opportunity for us to just collect ourselves, whether it's starting in the morning, ending our day, and really being prepared for joining us. And just to put our feet on the ground, take a brief moment, take a deep breath, and really ground ourselves in being fully present. One thing that we really appreciated about this particular picture is the majesty of it, the strength, the peacefulness of it. And certainly we see a reflection in that, perhaps giving us an opportunity to be reflective as well. Let's just take one more deep breath. And we'll continue. From here, we're going to review our agenda. We've done some grounding. I'm going to have you some quick introductions for us. We want to share a COVID-19 update. We have some very specific interactive mapping resources that we think you will really appreciate. Then we're going to go behind the curtain and we're going to interview Ida and Casper and Allison, if she can join us, or she might be there with the chat feature as well. But we're really going to be behind the curtain, where Catapult is going to give us an honest assessment of how Hop-In worked for their event. Then we're going to give you a chance to really explore various Hop-In features, including, and we'll review them as we go, but we have expo hall features, we have polling and networking that we'd like you to explore. And then we're going to start our small group sessions, and we have 7 that are amazing for you to join. And we'll look forward to giving you a little bit more information about that. And then we're going to just wrap up and share experiences from there. I do want to welcome the conveners.org team. My name is Stephanie Brady. I'm Chief Relationship Officer, and I'll be joined here on this call by Sarah Sterling, who is our program catalyst. And many of you are familiar with her because she runs all of our membership engagement programs, and we're thrilled to have her here. She will be hosting an expo booth you could please visit. Sarah Joy Pond won't be able to make this call, but her name, we'll talk about her because we have a very specific offer for you all to take advantage of. If you want to have a one-on-one with her, we'll be sharing details about that. And then Ray Champion, our Chief of Staff and phenomenal moderator, he's going to be jumping in and doing some exploring with you on some of the COVID-19 resources with you. I do want to welcome back Ida Falkenberg from Catapult Cloud, co-founder of Catapult Cloud Future Fest. And with her is joined certainly by Casper Bjornborg, and who is the project lead at Catapult, and Allison Fort is an impact partner at Catapult. And we just have to thank, first and foremost, Catapult has been helping us. This is now the second call, and we are grateful for their generosity of actually giving us access to their hop-in backstage and allowing us to host events here, and for their time just sharing their experiences with us. So we're grateful to have them back with us. Just a little bit about conveners.org for those who aren't familiar with us. We really support impact conveners at the system level, and we do that really by offering membership, a community opportunity to connect and learn and exchange and share best practices. We also have advisory services, and that's just a customized sort of deeper dive consulting if you need any more intensive, whether it's facilitation coaching for your team, all the way into a very specific event strategy and facilitation hands-on approach. And we also offer community resources, and this is one of them, just convening and sharing and reporting out best practices, like these particular calls are free convening and coronavirus calls. A little bit more about member benefits. And just to give you an idea, again, to visit in the expo booth when you can start to explore, Sarah Sterling will be there, and she can give you a little bit more scoop on the specific benefits to members, like our playbook for conveners, our peer learning opportunities, and then also our targeted discounts. I'll wrap up just this part of conveners.org with just some next community support opportunities for you all. Please consider joining us for the June virtual certification training opportunity. This is the June cohort, our fourth now. Given its popularity, it's a very specific 3-tier process for a cohort, meeting at 3 different times to really break down the Purpose First framework, facilitation, and design techniques for virtual convening. And certainly if you want more information, we can pop some information into the chat, or you can follow up with us after this call. This is where Sarah Joy comes in. We really, for those on the call, want to extend an invitation for a complimentary 30-minute consultation with her. And this is really the opportunity to take advantage at this point of really discussing, setting up 30 minutes to talk about any specific convening goal, challenge, or opportunity you want some help with. So we want to be there for you, especially during these challenging times. So take advantage of some of that information if you'd like. With that, I do want to, pass it over to Ray. What he will be doing in this convening and coronavirus update, we have some amazing interactive mapping opportunities. Hello, Ray. We see you up here on the main stage. And if you'd like, I'm at least going to share with the audience here. These are the links to the global resources he will be reviewing with you. Everyone will get a copy of this presentation afterwards via email, so not to worry. But if you want to go through this process, Ray, I will stop sharing my screen at this point and let you take over if you'd like.
Thanks so much, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Stephanie mentioned, this is our 6th convening and coronavirus call. Super happy to have the Catapult team here to support us after a really big undertaking of virtual convening. And usually during this portion of the call, we have updates shared from Esther Johnson and some of our folks in the public health world. And we thought that we'd try something a bit different this time and share some tools with you so that you can keep up to date with the pandemic on your own. And so I'm going to drop a link into the chat, and I'm also going to share my screen and walk through the tools. And the first one is one that I just placed in the chat, and that is a tool from a group out of the University of Oxford. Let me turn off my video so you can get a full capture of the screen. And here, this is a really fantastic tool because you're able to break down all of the stats related to coronavirus based off of area, country, and you're also able to see some really great visualizations. And some of this may not be getting captured in the screen share, but again, I just dropped the link in there, so feel free to click through that. The second tool I want to highlight is this, and it's more of a dashboard. So providing some of the similar information, both these tools are updated daily. You can break this out by country, and you also can look at some of the critical trends. And this is really helpful in terms of keeping up to date with some of the events that are happening day by day. I will also place this in our chat so that you have access to those resources. I will pass the back to Stephanie.
Thank you, Ray. We really appreciate you reviewing that for us. Absolutely. One thing, as Ray mentioned, really these we feel are sort of bookmark resources for you to give you an idea. Many of them will allow you to input your own local, whether it's a state or country, and be able to input and then capture and download whether you're presenting anything, maybe for specific partners or fellows or your board, and you really want to be up to date on the latest COVID information. Dr. Johnson also, she said those are the two best resources for us. She also would encourage you all to just go to your local government because some things are so dynamic and localized in terms of, what their policies are, different regions of the country, whether you're in a state, et cetera, are changing their regulations and restrictions on an ongoing basis. So don't feel free to hesitate reaching out to your local governments for that information as well. With this, I am going to welcome back on stage, and if Ida and Casper will join us on the main stage, and I will, okay, fantastic. Ida, you should be there, wonderful. We're trying something different this time, and we're waiting for Casper. He'll be joining us. And while we're doing that, hello, the two of you, we welcome you back. We're trying something different on the main stage this time. If any of you had been to the previous hop-in call we had on May 5th, we were sort of sharing screen and slides, and we went back and forth, and we realized, thanks to Catapult's recommendation, that main stage is really good for much more interactive interviewing and less about sort of next slide and changing back and forth. So what we're going to do is interview them about what worked and didn't. And while we do that, we also want to give you an encouragement to please join when you have a chance to explore the expo booth. There, Catapult has an expo booth that has a looping video of specific do's, don'ts, what they've learned and key takeaways listed for you in a presentation format. So we're going to mix that up a little bit. So please, I encourage you to visit the expo booth. With that, we want to ask you guys, we really appreciate your honesty and your transparency. And we want to know really how it went. So I'm going to ask Ida, remind us, if you don't mind, what your original event goals were that Catapult actually was a good fit for. What top two goals did Hop-In really sort of align with for the Catapult Cloud?
I think it's the participants' agency that was important for us, the interaction and the non-linear conversations that we could hold, and also that other people had opportunity to, or other conveners or, well, friends and collaborators had the opportunity to also be part of creating content and conversations with us.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about the Catapult Cloud. Again, was a 24-hour amazing yet intensive experience. Tell us a little bit how it was structured, number of events. I mean, how did you manage a 24-hour experience?
Correct. Actually, it ended up 12 hours.
It's long enough.
It's long enough, I'll tell you that. So, but it was really beautiful because we had a convening that went over several time zones, and I think that was important. And compared to other years, we had, I think, somewhere between like 15 countries. Now we had over 40 present. So that also seems that, when you cater to that, it's possible to have a broader reach, which is part of the main goals of Catapult as well, to share these conversations globally. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a sense of trying sort of with the participant agency? Did any of the participants actually create their own events? Like how did that really work in an organic way?
Well, I think some did, and I think we are in a process of learning, both as conveners and also participants, that there are platforms now that are that possibility is an option at all. So there were some, but maybe not as many as we thought or wanted, or like creating that energy that people can connect and network online. But I think that will change, and because people getting more and more accustomed to this way of having conferences and meetups.
And there were sort of created on two different levels. A few of them, I think I counted 8 or 12 or something like this, sessions that were really sort of designed, where they put like a proper headline and an imagery, set it up. They could just as easily been part of our program content, and they had a lot of people into that conversation and so on, and we sort of kept them as sessions through the event. And then there was a handful of small sessions initiated just to have a short conversation between a few people, maybe 3 or 4 people who just wanted to have a talk for 15 minutes. And those we end up starting deleting after that conversation was over. Otherwise it would sort of clutter or just be a little bit messy in the overall event. So I'm not actually sure how many of these little pop-up conversation sessions that were initiated, because we kept deleting them to make sure that they wouldn't be in the way of other things. But at the same time, I mean, the level of sort of how well maintained the ones, the 12 that we kept were pretty impressive. These were really thoughtful themes with really good people in them who wanted to invite on conversations that was like close to their heart and really important to them. So it's cool to see that the ones that we could see in the aftermath and in the documentation could just as easily have been part of the program.
So Casper, dovetailing on that, what did you learn from sort of tech challenges or surprises that came up?
A lot. I can tell you. Well, I mean, one of the things that I learned is something that I've learned 15 years ago when I started producing live events, which is, rehearsals is always so important. And by producing 15 years of normal events, I sort of figured out how to do that. And then now I had to relearn that and relearn how important it is and how you're going to do all these rehearsals when you work with digital platforms. But we jump in and off of Zoom calls and Hangouts and all of these different things daily. So we figure that it's just that easy. But when you do it with a big audience, and when you do it on a new platform, and when you do it with backstage like Hopin have or different features for these different platforms, you really need to test everything. So it's super crucial that like everybody's going to be sharing their camera or get on a stage during your event actually get a proper rehearsal. And even a few of the rehearsals that we did the day before turned out not working of some reason during the event, because you can't really control everything. You can't, when you have a normal live production, it's my microphones and my cameras and my stage, and I can control all of that stuff, and I just invite the people to use that. But when you do it on a virtual platform, it's going to be some guy on the other side of the globe, his microphone and his camera, and that might change, or someone might borrow it, or his kids steal it for the next day, or something happens. So you have to sort of calculate way much more risk when it comes to all these little technical glitches and hiccups, no matter which platform you use. Yeah. And then with Hopin, which I feel have been really fun and really good to use. Still, it's a new platform, and it's a little bit different from the other ones. So even though people are used to Zoom, they need to get used to that as well.
Great. And I see some questions coming into the chat. So thank you very much, Jerry. And I encourage you all, if you do have questions during the interview process, we'll pop in and make sure we ask them. A little bit behind the scenes of the Hopin experience, myself, Ida, and Casper are coming to you from backstage, which is a 10-second delay by the time you hear it. So give us a little bit of patience when you're typing in on the chat. We'll be able to see it and then respond back. So there'll be a slight, I wonder if they do that 10-second just in case. I've tried to watch my language. It's not like it's going to beat me out or anything like that, like a live broadcast. But so Jerry does ask, did Catapult use the Hopin Studio or an RMTP live stream service?
We used the Hopin system all the way through. We didn't plug in through any third-party video streams. We could have done that to get even more control of the main stage and our own broadcasting. You get a bunch of features that are really nice when you do that. You have more control of video content, and if you want to do little text things in the screen or graphics or whatever. But you lose one of the features that are really nice with Hopin, which is how your speakers dial in, and you have the opportunity with the backstage where you can talk to them in advance, and sort of that whole thing, you lose that. Then you need to have them dial into whatever system you're using. Okay. So it's pros and cons. But with the number of speakers that we had, we wanted to be able to just keep everything in the platform.
Great. And Ida, if you don't mind answering Kate Burns' question here, she said, how many sessions did you actually have? And if and when, how many were simultaneous at any given time?
Number, I think Casper needs to reply to that. I think it was about 43 or something. And in parallel, I guess there were like 4 or 5, depending on the day, something in that direction.
Including the ones that we choose to keep with the ones that people initiated, which was like 8 or something, and the Q&As that were sessions, we ended up with 78 in total. So that's a lot.
Jill Iltan asks, did you give speakers a toolkit for best setup for live stream? And I know, Ida, you replied back, yes, and you're happy to share. Tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll be sure to give everyone a copy of that or a link to that. So tell us a little bit about how you did that from a toolkit or prep perspective.
We just did a speaker PDF information on, like, with some screenshots of the Hopin events. And this is very much directed on the Hopin event, but it's also basic stuff like remember to charge your, earbuds, use browser as use Chrome as a browser. This kind of vision and how you sit in the window or your screen and these things. That is also super well part of the curriculum on the conveners. What do you call it? The course that we had with you guys.
Yes,
so, yes.
The virtual toolkit. Yeah,
virtual toolkit. That's the expression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll really recommend to use that. But I think what we also did was we were very, as you say, honest and say, like, this is a learning journey. This is an experiment and an experiment. Please join us for that, because this is very new. So we're very strategically when it comes to getting some, I would say, understanding of where we were and the co-creation and what we tried to achieve, and the output and the feedback that we got was, you know, people were part of that journey, and the energy during the convening and the event was truly magical. So we got a lot of really you know, being something more than just a Zoom call or a webinar. So I felt that we created that, absolutely.
Nietzsche Oneme, I'm hoping I pronounce your last name correctly. If not, please forgive me. But she asked a little bit of a follow-up question, Ida, on your comment about getting some positive feedback by just naming the experiment and just inviting people to join you in that journey. Did you have any other critical feedback, or were there any other brainstorm ideas you have to share with us about keeping people engaged?
We did talk a lot about, well, normally during our events, arts, both sort of performing arts and arts in general is always an important part of the event. It's a very sort of, it's a cultural event in many senses, and we're trying to sort of figure out how we would bring that into the virtual event. And I think we sort of stopped a little bit because we didn't have the resources and the bandwidth to really go to the extent that I wish we could have done. But this is something that we had so many ideas and so many sort of brainstorms and thoughts on stuff that we really wish that we could do. Yeah. When it comes to sort of, to bring that perspective in, to keep more things live, to have people, you know, everywhere joining in.
If you don't mind, I can check out the chat. And thank you so much for continue to keep your chat questions coming. Martha Belcher, you mentioned a good hack on getting Larry Brilliant to participate via cell phone. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I could, because as good as any, as forward thinking as technology based as Hopin is, sometimes, you know, just the good old fashioned hack has to happen. Could you explain how that unfolded?
Yeah, it's funny because the thing, we had the rehearsal the day before and it worked just fine. And we went from the this session on stage and over to on the stage conversation and interview to the session. So that worked perfectly fine. And then for some reason on the day, his sound didn't work. So that actually happened on the stage talk as well. But then we managed, or he managed to make it work. And then we jumped from the stage talk to the session, and all of a sudden his sound was gone. And the beauty of it was actually one that it was, I think it was someone from the audience or participation that said like, I think I said like, oh, maybe we could just call. And then there was all this feedback, you know, the sound, the beeping sound. And then, you know, we're getting all these tips in the chat of saying like, well, turn off your sound so and so. And then it turned out really beautifully. And it's that layer of extra magic on, you know, that's how we need to hack it or solve it. And these hacks, we do these hacks on our in-person events as well all the time as conveners, right?
Would you give us an idea of, a little bit honestly, the resources? What are the resources required to really pull off this event? And Casper, you've mentioned something called a buddy, a cloud buddy.
Yeah.
What is that?
The cloud buddy, we had a team of 5 or 6 people, including me and Ida and Alison and 3 more people with me in Oslo, sort of running the event, both sort of back-end technical help desk, being facilitators and presenting on stage and so on. Then we had 8, I think, people in addition to us that we called the cloud buddies. And these were our little helpers that were running and facilitating and making sure that all of the sessions worked. So these 8 shared the 60-something sessions between them and just went into the beginning and start of each session, making sure that whoever was going to be there were there, their mics and cameras were on, doing a few introduction slides, explaining, you know, welcoming people into the space, just making sure that everything, you know, kicked off the way it should in each of these sessions. And also they were sort of, we gave them all little pink clouds as their profile images, so it would be easy to see where they were in chat, or if you needed help with something, you could sort of find them in the event and ask them questions. And this was really, really helpful. And we had these spread out all over the world because they were volunteers that we had sourced, but we had a few in our office in Oslo as well, and it turned out really, really useful to have these people gathered physically. So if I would do a recommendation, it would definitely be to try, when it's possible, to keep the production team sort of physically sharing an office when it's possible, when it's safe, when it's legal, and so on, to be able to troubleshoot over the table and step in for each other and so on.
And
Jennifer,
to build on that, on Jennifer's questions here, no, they were not trained or experienced from before, and that is your new type of volunteers. And they were a little bit unpredictable because you can just not show up, right? And maybe it's not as fun as being part of an event when you're volunteering as it is, like, you know, sitting in your living room or whatever where you are when you're participating as a volunteer online. But I think actually when we had chats, we had WhatsApp chats in parallel also for communication. So we had a lot of those. So that's also important that we mentioned that it's, you know, both with speakers, the cloud buddies, and ourselves, the team, of course, core team. But from the WhatsApp chat for the cloud buddies, they were really, really excited when we, you know, the same energy when people are just finishing their event, and there was like this great energy of like great work and this was fun and so forth. So I think that will be a trending job to for the future. So maybe they will be a little bit more predictable and see it as a, you know, a learning journey and fun.
Mm.
and I appreciate, Ida, that you sort of had a back channel that you had to build in to this particular section. And the notion of these cloud buddies really just being volunteers, not really session moderators, because you also had a team of producers as well. So you sort of had to have a two-tier sort of approach to handle such a vast number of events and some running simultaneously, right?
Yeah, but it's really hard to say, you know, how big of a team do you need? Because you can technically like bootstrap this stuff and just run it on a super, super small team. But I don't recommend it. It's not easy, and it's not healthy, and it's not safe, but you can do it. But the best, of course, is to have a person who's dedicated to only work back office stuff, because it's gonna all of the time you're gonna get things that needs to be handled in the back office system of Hopin. And then a technical producer who's only doing the main stage and actually producing whatever people are seeing on screen. And then one person in each live session, in each session, that are sort of owning that or taking care of that session. But I mean, if you have a long day of sessions, you can do 6 or 7 sessions after each other. It doesn't need to be a new person for each one. But I mean,
Right.
there was a situation where I was doing an introduction on the main stage together with Alison, and sharing as I had the organizer feature from my account. I had a colleague with an iPad that I shared my screen to, clicking start on the next presentation, which is like this really crazy, stupid way to start a presentation. But that's just how we had to figure out how to do it, to be able to look in the camera and talk and click at the same time. Yeah.
Well, I have one last question, but I want to address sort of Jeff Polinsuk. I hope I again pronounced that last name correctly. But how much did you practice and rehearse before the actual event? And I can just tell you, our team at conveners.org trying to work through just this 90-minute sort of, you know, we were much more comfortable after over an hour of rehearsing how things worked and how things were flowing and how we were sharing screen and coming in and out of the different features. Do you have a rule of thumb of each session practice or rehearse X, or mostly rehearse main stage? Could you give a thumbnail or just a quick guide?
What we did, which is not, you know, how Hopin set it up to be done, but how we did is that I cloned the entire event the day before it was actually going to happen, and set it up as a rehearsal event, because you can copy an entire event with all the sessions and the stage and the booths and everything. And then we invited everybody in there to rehearse. For the main stage, we have a program that is chronologically running. I invited people on specific times to do a technical test for their presentation. But the sessions are just kept open for the entire day, and whoever was going to be in a session could just pop in there, whenever they had time during the day, with whoever they were going to run that session with, and test the camera and slides and everything. And that's one way to do it, I guess.
Okay, fantastic. And I do want to encourage everyone, when we get the chance to explore, stop by the Catapult Expo booth, because it will, Martha, to your sort of question of names, back office, do's and don'ts, key learnings and outcomes. And it's a great sort of cheat sheet for you to reference that kind of backs up our discussion here. I'll wrap up with just a general question for both of you. Would you use Hopin again?
Yes.
Yes and no. I think it's a good platform, and it serves our needs as conveners. They are a young platform. They're young teams. A little bit, they can be not that responsive as we wished on their support. Maybe not that service-minded, young, cool kids. It's very automated when it comes to the response as well. So, and I think the UX and as well, there is glitches. So you kind of have to prep for glitches. And also the US is a little bit not super logical. So I would say yes and no, but I actually mean that they need to step up their game. If not, someone else or other platforms will probably take over, because they're in that phase. That was a very honest answer, but I really want people to see that and know that before you just dive into Hopin and research, because this conference tech is really, really, really developing fast now.
Yeah, and they are trailblazers with all the downsides of that as well. They're breaking the ice because they're the first doing these kinds of platforms. So they are going to hit all the problems first, which is not only a good thing for them at all. So it's definitely quite possible that some underdog who's right behind them now is going to learn all of their mistakes and then just take the ball and run with it. Yeah.
The other thing I do want to mention, because we were becoming increasingly conscientious about diversity, equity, and inclusion, is that Hopin is a huge bandwidth hog. So, I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of bandwidth. So you have to have very strong Wi-Fi. And I want to be conscious that not everyone across the globe has access to that. And that, it works best on Chrome and or Foxfire. So there's very limited sort of best practices or, preps that people have to do. And I know everyone on this call received, thanks to your recommendation, before you join the call, here's how you prep. And we didn't do that for our first Hopin call, and we kind of had to learn about some of those hurdles. But I do want to mention that in that case as well. So what I'm going to do now, and I'll demonstrate this because the question came up of how do we move speakers off the main stage? And Ida and Casper, thank you very much for being with us. I'm going to, quote unquote, remove you by exiting out, and you can also turn off your video. And when they do that, I'll ask you both to turn off your video. And by doing that in the backstage, that then takes them out of the backstage, and now I'm in the forefront. And then they are able to then go in and explore different features or join a breakout session. So with that, I'm going to go back and share my screen again. And in this time, we're going to actually transition to what we call, and I hope you can see, because yes, now I can see my screen being saved and shared. Explore and discover time for everyone here. And we want to give you time to explore the different features of Hopin. And you will notice, let me first go back before I jump into some of those sessions. You will notice as you're on the screen, on the left-hand side, it will go down where you can choose sessions, networking, expo. There's even polls that we are going to be posting, and you might even visit the poll section. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 10 minutes, if you don't mind. So it's around 9:15 by the time we start this, 9:15 Pacific Standard Time. And I want to just have you all for 10 minutes explore the many different features. The sessions won't start until 10 minutes later. And I want to give you that specific tip that while you're exploring, Hopin does not have the opportunity for me as the moderator and presenter to give you a hint or a flash or a notification that says, please join your session now. It won't give you that opportunity. So I'll just ask you to be conscious of your time to explore. Please check out, before you do that, I want to give you an idea of the networking feature, just a quick hint. Join it. You have up to 3 minutes. It randomly pairs you with people, and you have 30 seconds to 3 minutes just to chat. And then move on to another networking. It'll bump you into another person to meet and greet. Certainly visit the expo booth, check out the polls, and then in that 10-minute time, if you don't mind, by, let's say it would be by 9:30 Eastern Standard or Pacific Standard Time, here's what I want to introduce some of our session speakers. And we're really very pleased and grateful for the folks that are hosting sessions. We have a fantastic range of topics. First with Dominic from Salzburg Global Seminar, who will be visit with him to talk about virtual convenings for fellows programs. Certainly visit with Melanie of Feeding America of really how they're mobilizing community services, her network of food banks. How are they doing that within COVID constraints? So that could be of interest to you. Also, visit with Betty and Luis, also of Students for Sensible Drug Policy. We'll be talking about their efforts to create a virtual lobby day. And really, how do you actually support advocacy and policy when it has to be done virtually? So that could be very interesting as a learning discussion for you all. We also are joined by Jerry of Social Enterprise World Forum, talking about social enterprise innovations during a global crisis. Next, we have Yannick from Maverick. And thank you so much also for joining us to really chat about building community through play and fun. Another topic, please join Hillary Allen of Net Impact to really have a deep dive into how do you engage the next generation of game changers. All right. And then Kate was joining us from Synergos, integrating mindfulness into convenings. And that could be very wonderful, knowing that intangibility of sharing the mindfulness integrated into your convenings virtually could be important. So now we'll ask you again to sort of explore now. I am going to then step away, and that way the main stage will be blank as we go. And please join some networking. You might see me jump into networking. I might pop into Expo Hall. I'll be posting some polls, so check those out. And then truly give yourself 10 minutes and pop into one of the sessions. I will also let you know you can pop out and into another session. So please don't feel like you have to be committed to one session. If you want to try a few different types of discussions, please do so and explore. So with that, happy exploring, and I'll pop in and see you all in some of the sessions. Hello, everyone. Now, hopefully you can see me. I appreciate your patience on that. So the main stage I'm learning had to be reset. And now hopefully you can see me as well as my split screen. Thank you all for the chat that you let me know that we had to restart and reboot, but hopefully that's working now. So just wanted to give you a few more minutes as we close out. for anyone to ask any particular questions or make any comments specifically about what you noticed specifically during this breakout session. So I know one of the things as I was visiting some of the sessions is when you are in a session, you can actually see that the number of people listening in might not necessarily be the actual number of people viewing, because people, while they can share their video and audio, might just be in listen only mode, which gives you an idea in the upper right-hand corner of your live session, breakout session. It's a little eye that might be like, oh, there are 2 other people in this room, but we don't see or hear them. So that's one thing I wanted to call attention. I'll wait for any other specific comments, things that you've noticed in particular of any specific session, the networking feature as well, any polls. Jill thinks you'd mentioned when people are in listen only mode, it would still be nice to see their names. And Casper or Ida, if you're still in, is there a way to at least share that? I'm not aware of a function that allows somebody who's just listening in to just say, as a guest, Stephanie Brady is listening in. Yes, you can. Okay, thanks, Avery. Shelley asked, can you move between breakout sessions? Absolutely. You had free sort of participant agency to kind of come and go in any of the sessions. And of course, certainly say hello when you join a session and politely say, I'm jumping to another session. I know when I was doing that, I saw a lot of people being able to explore different topics. So thank you, Shelley, for mentioning you like the networking, and Tracy Abbott said you like the networking. Did anyone try the connect button, which will give and send an invitation to that person's profile information to say, it was great to connect with you on Hopin. Let's continue the conversation. And whether that be your LinkedIn profile or any other social media profile that you sent in. Annette, thank you. You really appreciated the candor and variety of things you experienced. And a shout out to Dominic, certainly. Wonderful. Yeah, Jill, and I appreciate you noticing when you do a networking session, there's a time limit, and I could be jarring. And so there is sort of a counter. What's also a little unnerving is when you join a specific networking session and are connected, you're sort of inadvertently or randomly paired with somebody that the ticker then starts, and it's a countdown from, we set it at 4 minutes, but there is the back end opportunity to set it for up to 10, 15, 20 minutes. So that's just something that the event has the opportunity to extend that much longer for that. So continue to keep any of your questions. What does happen when you connect? You will probably have an invitation, Shelley, after this that you will notice. I do want to, when we wrap up with 2 minutes, I'll address any questions if the chats keep coming through. But just again, as a key takeaway in the community of resources that we do want to offer all of you is please be aware of our next virtual convener certification starts. It's our June cohort. The dates are the 10th, 17th, and 24th. They are later in the evening, you'll notice, because we do have a global audience, and it will allow us the chance to have the Eastern side of our globe and the conveners there be able to join us. So certainly if you want some more information, thank you, Ray, you put that in the chat. You can get some more information about that. And our members receive a 50% discount off of that. So from here, I will just say thank you. We are closing to an end. We thank you for not only participating, but also just journeying through this experiment with us. It's a bit of a grand gesture for us just to jump in and see how this works to give you all a chance. So we are very hopeful that you gain some value out of it and that you were able to connect with some of your peers. And thank you, shout out for Annette for the thumbs up that you are a graduate of that certification program. So we wish you all the best, and thank you very much for joining us for another Karina and Coronavirus call. Cheers.